Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf joins me now in studio. Nathan, we're going through some really challenging times with the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of people are upset recently with the UCP government and cuts to education, and rightly so, especially when it affects the EAs or educational assistants. People are not happy.
That's absolutely true, Hal. It's a very challenging time, and these people, the educational assistants, the custodians, the bus drivers have been doing an exceptional amount of work, really working with some of our most vulnerable kids. And to make that change right now is very challenging. It was done predominantly because many of these individuals would be laid off for the summer months coming up right away, and the education ministry and the government is trying to do their part in limiting expenses wherever they can to redirect those resources to healthcare to help address the COVID-19 crisis. Now, some of those EAs were still established contact with their students online, and I will be seeking further clarity to that. This is very, very challenging, but nobody is immune from the economic impact of COVID-19. Private sector has been absolutely ravaged and
Devastated, right?
Devastated, and now we see some of the impacts to public sector as well. It is an extremely challenging situation to balance costs and the economic costs as well as those jobs, because we can't damage both public and private at the same time. Those are the two legs that we stand on, and we need to be aware of that for sure.
I mean, the schools are still open right now, just classes have been canceled. A lot of the students staying at home, parents are learning how to teach their kids at home, right? Homeschooling right now. Any idea when potentially the kids would be allowed to return to class?
I think that'll be up to the chief medical officer. Obviously, we have to get through COVID-19 first. We've seen the numbers continuing to climb, although yesterday the numbers were down a little bit, which is hopeful, but it's far too early to say that we're through the worst of this yet.
Let's also talk about the economy, and like you said, it's been devastating on small, medium, and large businesses in our province. In particular, the fact that oil is like $22 a barrel. We see it at the pumps as well. You know, gas is down to 73, 72 cents a liter. In some areas, Walsh, Alberta, outside of Medicine Hat, was $44.9. I mean, I haven't seen numbers like that since I was a kid, and I got my driver's license at 16 with my little Datsun. I mean, this is crazy times right now. How is the price of oil really impacting our economy here? We rely on it heavily, do we not?
It is massive. There are two waves to COVID-19. The first wave is health and safety and trying to maintain that. The second is the massive economic impacts that we'll have, and we're just seeing a glimmering of that at this point. But the potential for our economy to be able to recover is a massive focus of the Premier, Cabinet, and all of caucus to say we will get through COVID-19. We will get through the health crisis. We will do the absolute best we can. That's why we're taking the stringent measures that we are. Mm-hmm. But the next step is, how do we retain absolutely core pieces of our economy? Private industry, agriculture, the food supply chain, the oil and gas sector. We have to be able to maintain those basic essential parts of our economy so that we can have something to build on when we recover.
And forget about balancing the budget for the next short term. I mean, the UCP was relying on what, $58 a barrel? Hopefully maybe next year 63. That doesn't look like it's going to happen now.
This is a whole new world, Hal. It's a whole new world where our Premier is involved in communications with the highest levels of government in the United States to say if other nations, a part of OPEC, are going to do this predatory dumping into the situation.
Like Saudi Arabia?
Like Saudi Arabia, Russia. What can we, as North America, maybe the USMCA partnership agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, what can we do to stabilize our economy, make sure that we're on solid foundation first? Why are we allowing other dictatorships around the world to influence us to such great measures? I think you'll be seeing some more announcements to that very, very shortly.
Some people I was speaking with as well are not happy about this fine up to $1,000 if you're caught gathering in groups over 15, or maybe you're not self-isolating if you have symptoms of COVID-19. They're saying that's a little extreme. What are your thoughts?
Well, maybe it is a little extreme, but extreme times demand extreme measures. And there are some of those in our society that are not taking this seriously. But the spread of this virus can be absolutely devastating for a population. Now, I would like to just make a shout out. We know we have 5 cases in Lethbridge. Those 5 individuals have done a phenomenal amount of self-restraint and just staying at home. Self-isolating. We have not had that continued community spread. That is just a testament to how seriously they have taken it. So we don't have that here right now, and we want to keep it that way. We want people to really understand it only takes one person to go into a scenario, whether it's a shopping mall or a seniors complex, and spread it to a potential much more at-risk population. So people need to understand this is very, very serious. If we can stop this now, we're on the quick path to economic recovery.
It's all about flattening the curve, obviously, but we're not telling people to just stay home specifically. They can still go out, enjoy the parks and go for walks, just keep the 2-meter distance apart, correct?
That's correct, yeah. We don't have police in every aisle. We don't have a police state. We just need people to know this is very serious. There's things that they can do, wash their hands very simply, and be aware that COVID-19 spreads predominantly by contact. So you touch your face, you touch an object like a handrail, and then someone else touches that as well. That's the transmission of COVID-19. So if we can stop that, wear gloves or don't touch things, make sure you wipe things down, whether you shop for them and bring them home, wipe them down.
How about filling out at the gas pumps as well,
Filling up
right?
at the gas pump,
Right.
make sure those kind of things. I was at a gas station earlier this morning and I saw the attendants out there immediately after I left, wiping it down. So people are getting the message, and that's where social distancing comes into play.
Now, the province is putting an official request through the federal government to deem the entire food supply chain as an essential service. Can you explain really what that means?
Well, that means from field to plate, everything in between. We need food to survive. That's obviously a very, very simple thing that we need to have. We also need to have confidence in it. If people are worried that their food is not clean or not safe to consume, we have a very, very significant problem. So farmers, including their seeds and their fertilizers and their watering, to be able to get those crops grown, right to the harvesting, transportation, trucking industry, they do an essential service for us, and then right to stocking the shelves in the grocery stores. People need to understand that this is how we have food, and not only do we supply food for here in southern Alberta, but we really supply food around the world. And we are one of the best quality, the safest places to grow and consume food. We really need to protect that.
What are some of the challenges farmers in our region are facing when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic? What are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of them, they are worried about their fertilizer, being able to get that. They're worried about getting their fuel, making sure that they can get their tractors in the field and their crops planted. They're worried about the trucking industry, making sure that part of the supply chain stays operational. And right down to railway as well, making sure that their crops in the fall can continue to make it on rails. These are all key important pieces, and we really support and need our farmers.
The local Building Industry and Land Development Association, along with others in Alberta, are asking you to declare the construction industry an essential service, similar to what they did in Ontario. Your thoughts?
I believe that was also released this weekend. We are supporting that, recognizing industrial, commercial, and residential parts of construction as essential services. And this again speaks to our economic recovery. If we have massive layoffs and unemployment approaching 20–30%, you can imagine how difficult that is to build that back. If we can keep these companies working already, we can keep them going with them maintaining the measures that they need to for safety, then it just makes that one step closer to that recovery that we are going to need when we get through this.
Ottawa's talked about emergency bridge funding to help a lot of people with their mortgages, childcare, the rent, food. How is the UCP government? How is Jason Kenney really helping us out in that regard?
Yeah, we've already committed tens of millions of dollars to this as well, particularly focusing on small businesses, deferring their WCB payments, even paying up to 50% of those premiums for them, helping them with utility deferrals, lines of credit, loans, mortgages, that kind of deferral as well. We really want to make sure our small business people have the supports that they need to keep going. To be able to pay income payments to cover that, we just don't have the economic capacity to do that. But we want to make sure that as many of them can keep working as possible through this. That's the important thing.
Lethbridge West MLA Shannon Phillips is saying the province really should match Ottawa's increase of $300 per child with the Canada Child Benefit Program. Any word on this is actually going to happen?
At this point, the province is not considering that. We've gone in different directions to try to keep people working, to try to stop the spread as quickly as possible so that we can get them back to work. Some of those daycares for essential workers have been reopened to help those people with the children so they can be a part of the work. I think as we see the stop of the spread, we'll see those things come back more and more quickly, and that's where we are choosing to put our supports right now.
I understand as well, Nathan, that BC is looking at providing $500 a month rent for a period of 4 months to help out anyone not able to pay their rent, similar to my kids actually in Ontario right now. Is Alberta considering something similar?
Not right at this time. What we've done instead is we've put a moratorium on evictions for the month of April alone. This doesn't mean that tenants don't have to pay the month of April's rent. They get off scot-free. This is not blanket, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that those who need help seek out their landlords and come to an arrangement to make sure that those payments are made in a deferred way that they can manage. There's lots of supports out them for the emergency interim funding from the Alberta government, $1,156, I think it was, one-time payment to cover 2 weeks to help them cover the rent. But landlords as well need to make sure that they continue to have that income so that they aren't put at threat. And they need to know that this is a 1 month deferral only, and that tenants need to work with them to make sure they make an arrangement. Tenants just can't refuse to be paid. If they do that, those evictions will be back on the table in the month of May.
I'm worried for a lot of our small business owners here in town who've told me specifically, Hal, 2 more months of this and we have to close our doors permanently. Yeah. That's a scary situation, considering how many small businesses, how many people they employ across the province, small to medium businesses.
Absolutely. I think seeing our premier fight for that 75% wage coverage by the federal government, which was announced last week, that was a major step in the right direction to help our small and medium-sized businesses. But we need to get through this quickly. I think that's what speaks to our extreme measures for COVID-19. That's the source of a lot of this. If we can get through that quickly, again, we've said it many times, the quicker we can get back on our feet. But we know this can't be sustained by small businesses for long.
Premier Jason Kenney has put together this Economic Recovery Council, has some pretty heavy hitters on the roster, including former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Any word yet on some of their recommendations?
No word yet. They were just assembled last week, but I am sure they're having conversations. I'm sure that they will have recommendations. Those kind of minds in the room to say, here's measures and here's steps that the government can do to help us get back on our feet as quickly as possible.
What recommendations would you bring to the Premier on behalf of Southwestern Alberta and Lethbridge here?
Well, the economic stimulus, I think it has been shown in the past that there's times for governments to spend and times for governments to restrain. Obviously, we were elected on a platform for spending restraint. We realize that in the terms of this crisis, a global pandemic, is not the time to do that. We need to inject some capital into the markets to allow people to get back to work, to show that confidence in those workplaces so that people can have a job. And when they're working, when they're providing for their families, when they're paying their mortgages, when they're paying their loans, that's what really gets things going. And we need to see that as quickly as possible. So I'm hoping for that stimulus package. There's a few projects in Lethbridge I've spoken to before, whether it's with help from the federal government for the airport, whether it's help for our ag industry in terms of Highway 3 twinning or the exhibition park expansion. These are some of the really key ones. There are others on the table that are being communicated. Some of that could be deferred maintenance both at the university and the college, but there's a lot on the list that we can speak to, and I have been speaking to for Lethbridge and area.
How about our healthcare industry right now? Obviously, it's being strained with COVID-19. Any chance of bringing back some of those public sector workers, some of those nurses?
That is part of the $500 million package that was announced earlier on by our government, is meant to provide the funding, not just for materials, but also for support positions. There are talks right now about advancing LPNs and RNs who were very, very close to graduating, seeing what we can do to see if we can get them inserted into the workforce, because we need more help, not less.
Now, you're the MLA for Lethbridge East, which historically in the past has had a lot of Liberal support, NDP support, And you've had some challenges, I guess, in that riding as well. Some people have even suggested maybe you sit as an independent with all of the cuts right now that the UCP is making. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, that has been put forward to our office. I think a lot of people in Lethbridge have in the past been on the left side of the scale or liberal in their thinking. This last election, I think they were looking for change, which gave me an opportunity to win that seat. And I've said all along, it's very challenging as a publicly elected member to stay true to the platform that you were elected upon and the promises made there, which I hold very seriously, as well as represent the individual nature of your constituency. Lethbridge East does have a very, very diverse economic makeup. There's as many provincial and publicly funded employees as there are private. So that thinking is different. So I find myself between those two tensions. But right now, in the middle of a crisis, is not the time to invoke a by-election or create division. Right now, it is my job to work within the system that we have, work in cooperation with the MLA for Lethbridge West, to work with the opposition, work with the government, and make sure that we are doing everything possible to keep our people at work, keep our people safe. Again, a shout out to those people who are working within our healthcare sector, doing an amazing job, putting themselves on the front line, putting aside their contract talks, putting aside their concerns, and working on our behalf.
Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf, thanks for joining me in studio today.
Thanks, Hal. Appreciate it.